So what we're really focusing on in this video is just understanding linear perspective. And that is the technique that we talked a little bit about last week, which begins with a horizon line. That's the line that separates the ground and the sky. And I'm going to draw my horizon line just about, I guess I'd say about 2/3 of the way up the paper. So that'll give us more ground space. So we'll have a lot more space to work with in creating our details and practicing some of these techniques. Now I'm using a ruler, so mine is going to be pretty straight, but you don't have to use a ruler for the horizon line. When we look off into the distance and, at the horizon, it's not always perfectly flat. So just so you know, today we're using rulers, but you don't always have to do that. And then I need to decide on a vanishing point, and I'm going to pick one kind of in the middle here. That is the point to which all of these receding lines are going to come together and essentially vanish. It's like everything back there disappears. Okay, so now we need to draw our road that is coming up into the foreground, closer to the viewer. And we know that that's the case because this space is the foreground. It's close to the viewer. This is the background. It's farthest away. So we know that this is going to be getting wider, this road, as it comes up into the foreground. Okay. So now I want you guys to, we're going to practice. I want you to see how these orthogonal lines are used, these perspective lines, to make things appear to be receding. And one of the best ways for us to do that is to line the road with some trees. So we're going to practice that here. Now, keep in mind, these could be trees. It could be a fence that's lining the road. It could be buildings. It could be signs, big billboards that you see along the road when you're traveling. So we're going to use trees because that will give us the opportunity to use overlap, to use size and placement, which are 3 of the techniques that we talked about last time. Okay, so I'm just going to begin with a big tree right here in the foreground, and I'm keeping it really simple for this project because I just don't want you guys to get overwhelmed. So you will get a handout that has some different kinds of trees on it. So you can get, a little bit more creative. But for this purpose, I'm just going to do a really simple tree. Now I know that I'm going to need to erase this line because it is behind this tree. I'm sorry, I cannot stand the shape of that tree. So I'm just going to kind of go around and give myself a more natural sort of line. That's better. Okay. Okay, here we go. Now, so if my tree is that tall, then this is my guideline, and that means that my other trees have to fall in line in this space. And to help it make a little more sense, I'm also going to draw a guideline on the bottom, and that will tell me where my tree trunks need to be sitting. Okay, so I think it's really helpful if you draw a light vertical line that's parallel to the side of your paper. It goes up and down. And I think, we talked about this last time, I think that it helps to build your tree around that line because it will keep you from laying your trees down on the side, which is a really typical thing to do. Because you're kind of fighting your brain right now. Like your brain is going to want to do things different than what this math is telling you to do. Okay, so there's my tree trunk. I'm going to get rid of that guideline now. Okay, I also erased this little horizon line that was behind there. Okay, so I've got 2 trees, but we're going to do a row of trees. So I'm going to do another guideline here. It's getting closer to the horizon line, so I'm using placement. It's getting smaller and skinnier, so I'm also using size. And even trying to kind of line these up so that where the trunk meets the leafy part of the tree is similar. So in case you're wondering why I keep kind of going back and forth looking at that, that's helpful too. So that's a line there that will help me with that. Again, guys, please feel free to keep things like the trees very simple. The house, or buildings, keep them simple until you really understand this whole method, because it can get overwhelming. Okay, now here's something I'm noticing. I drew these a lot darker than I drew this one. And as we learned, the objects that are close up are the ones that are going to have more, they're going to be darker, they're going to have more detail. Okay, I'm not going to go do all that detail now, but I do feel like I needed to make that a little bit darker. Okay, and so I'm going to do one more and see if that feels like enough. So there's my guideline again. Making sure that my trunks are staying nice and straight. Keeping the tree leafy part below this guideline. Okay, now what's also going to happen is if I just keep going, it's just going to get really light and kind of sketchy back here. Okay, you're not going to be able to see much because it is getting smaller as it's going into the distance. Okay. Gonna leave that. Now over here, I want us to do a building. I feel like everybody needs to know how to do a building, okay? So we're gonna do this as a house, and it's going to be below the horizon line. In another video, I do talk about how it makes a difference. If your building is below the horizon line, you're going to see some of the top of it. If your building goes above the horizon line, you're not going to see the top of it. So notice how on this building, these corners connect. These corners are connecting to the vanishing point. This one doesn't because you don't see it. You can't see it because it's above the horizon line. Here, I connected these two to the vanishing point and this one because since it's below the horizon line, you can see the top of that building. Okay, so that is another video that you have in your reference materials. So here, I'm going to make a house. I'm going to keep it really simple. If you guys want to use your tracers for that, you can, or you can just draw it out with your ruler. I'm going to move it back just a little bit. I am noticing to make sure that this is parallel to the horizon and to the top of my paper, and this is parallel to the side of my paper so that my house doesn't look like it's falling over. Okay, so simple flat house. Now I'm going to connect it on these corners with a light guideline. This corner to the vanishing point. And now this corner to the vanishing point. And now, since my house has a point, it's the point that I'm going to connect to the vanishing point. Okay, it's the top of my roof rather than this side. If I didn't have the roof, if I didn't have this triangle on the roof, then I would be connecting this corner to the vanishing point. That is what I did over here on my Target building. Okay, so okay, there we go. Now I have to decide how far back this is going to go, and I have to stop it and the roof, the depth of it, with a parallel line to this line. Okay, so I'm going to use that scoot method that I told you about. I'm going to start here, and I'm going to just scoot my ruler back. That looks about wide enough. So I'm going to draw that line here. Okay, same thing here. I get it parallel. I line it up with this line, and then I push it back or scoot it back to make it parallel. Okay, now I can get rid of these. Okay, and let's do doors and windows, because that part is really tricky. So if this is the front of my house, then I can just draw my doors flat because it's facing me. If it's facing the viewer, you're kind of flattening it, right? So this is the front side. That's fine. That can be flat. So I'm just using a rectangle. I can do a window here into the front door and a little swirly little handle maybe. Okay, now the windows on the side of the house get tricky. So just like this line and this line, the top and bottom of your windows have to point to the vanishing point. So I'm going to line my ruler up with the vanishing point. I'm going to draw a line here that will be the top of my window. And then I'm going to draw a line here that will be the bottom of my window. Do not overthink it, okay? Don't look at that and think, oh, that doesn't look right. You just have to give it time. You have to follow the rules and give it time for your brain to kind of wrap around what's going on here. So as long as they are pointing to the vanishing point, I'm good. Now, these lines that are going to end the windows have got to be parallel to the side of the house, okay? So this is equal distance. So I'm going to draw this line parallel, same distance all the way up and down. And then if I want to turn this into two windows, I just need to draw the sides here and erase. Okay, now when you guys have this much done, I want us to take them and put them in a sleeve protector like this. And we're going to look at them and kind of check them, okay? We're going to check them with one another, okay? So you'll put yours in here when you're ready for somebody to check it. And what your table mates are going to do is take their rulers and line it up. And everybody's going to have a dry erase marker, and you are just going to draw those lines to make sure that your things are lining up the way that they should be, okay? So I can check mine like this. Okay, so basically like that. And that's going to help us see if we've got the house right, if it is lining up correctly. And then you'll be able to tell where you need to make corrections. And then you'll pull it out and make those corrections. Okay? Now from here, this is where you are going to start adding what you want to make this your own. So just some ideas. Well, first of all, we want to get rid of some of these guidelines. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to go kind of quickly here on this because you guys can go back and watch the video and slow it down wherever you need to. But these were parts, these two lines were just guidelines. So I'm going to get rid of those. Now I can decide what I want this road to be like. Do I want it to have lines down the middle? And if I do, then these are also going to be getting smaller and lighter as they go into the distance. Okay, I could actually need to make it a lot more so. This is one of those things you just kind of have to play around with. If you're not looking at a picture of it, you're just going to have to kind of practice it. Okay, until you like it, until you think it makes sense. Okay, now another thing for you to consider, maybe in the distance, you want there to be some mountains. Okay, so way back here, I'm going to do a really light mountain line because we know that this would be, the value would be really light because it's all the way in the distance. I could add more details here. I might want to have a little pond back here. Okay, now keep in mind when you're looking at water from this angle, it's going to be kind of squished. Okay, it's going to be thinned out. You're not looking down on it from above, you're looking at it from the perspective of this road, so kind of at a side angle. So you want it to look like it got pinched, kind of. Okay, so I could have a little pond there if I wanted to make maybe a drive that turns in from this road and goes back here to something else, or maybe goes back to the garage of this house or something like that. Make sure you're kind of lining up. Okay, now these are not going to be using the vanishing point because they are parallel to the bottom and top of the paper, so they can just kind of be the same distance as they go behind my house here. I would probably add windows to that. Okay, and then I could even, maybe I would even want to add a fence. I'll make a video for you guys separately, but if you're doing a fence, it's a lot like the trees. You are using your perspective lines. Okay, and that's going off into the distance. And then when it goes this way, again, because of the fact that it's facing us, it's just flat and you don't have to use the vanishing point. Okay, and I could make that a lot more detailed. I could come back and make these more of a shape, and then I could do little lines in between. Okay, so we can add details to that. But basically, this is what you're doing. You're going to have a row of some kind of trees and then at least one building over here. These could be palm trees. This could be a road going off to the beach. You could have a sunset in the background, a lighthouse way back here. This could be a hotel building over here. It's totally up to you. Okay, so it could be the desert, and I could have a row cactus over here. So totally up to you, but you are going to show me that you're using all of those elements that we learned about for creating space, and you need at least one building. Okay,